Hey there, Blazer fans, and welcome to episode 35 of the Dragon's Den, a podcast for those that bleed green and gold. Today, I will not have a guest with me, but I will be covering the NCAA tournament appearances by the men's and women's teams in UAB's history. I know it would seem like I would cover UAB's longest run in 1982 to the Elite Eight, or the first NCAA appearance in 1981, but UAB great Chris Giles and I covered all of that in great detail in my episode that released last week. Chris can break it down better than I could anyway. So if you want to listen to that run, go check it out on your favorite streaming platform. I highly recommend it if you are a UAB history buff or a sports history buff in general. But for today, I'm going to cover the rest. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first NCAA appearance after the 1981 and 1982 run came for the men's team in 1983. The Blazers lost Oliver Robinson, Chris Giles, Craig Lane, Norman Ankrum, Jonathan Nicholas, and Donnie Spear from the season before, and learned to play without the leadership of those six seniors. After a not-so-great non-conference play, the Blazers turned things around in Sunbelt play and earned a 3 seed in the Sunbelt tournament that was hosted at the BJCC in Birmingham. UAB narrowly got past Charlotte and VCU by 4 points combined and avenged 2 regular season losses to South Florida by defeating the Bulls in the title game 64-47. The 19 and 13 Blazers were the 10th seed in the 1983 NCAA tournament as the automatic qualifier for the Sunbelt. Their first round opponent was the 7th seed Oklahoma in the Mid-East Regional in Evansville, Indiana. Oklahoma was 24-9, second in the Big 8 Conference, and led by Wayman Tisdale, who averaged 24.5 points per game. Tisdale was the first freshman ever named to an All-American team. UAB had 12 days off between the conference tournament final and this game, and the layoff hurt them. They shot poorly and got in foul trouble early. Oklahoma led by 3 at halftime and led the game until the 6:42 mark of the second half when the Blazers took a 1-point lead on a McKinley Singleton 15-foot jumper. The Sooners quickly regained the lead and held it by hitting their free throws down the stretch. Oklahoma gave UAB its first ever first-round elimination from the NCAA tournament by the score of 71-63. Llewellyn Foster led UAB with 20 points. On to 1984. The 1983-1984 season was the opposite of the previous season in terms of regular season play. The Blazers got out to a 13-2 start that season in non-conference play with wins over Auburn, Mississippi State, Baylor, Villanova, and Tennessee. Where they struggled was in the second half of the season in conference play and 2 non-conference games against Memphis and DePaul. UAB lost 8 of their last 15 regular season games. They were the 5th seed out of 8 in the Sunbelt tournament, but the tournament was once again in Birmingham at the BJCC. After defeating South Alabama in the quarterfinals and 1 seed VCU in the semis, UAB defeated Old Dominion in the conference title game 62-60. The Blazers were showing more maturity than the previous season with more upperclassmen and rising stars Steve Mitchell and Jerome Mincy in their second years at UAB. This was a 53-team tournament with the 4 play-in games and the 4 top seeds in each region getting a bye. UAB was the 8th seed and playing the 9th seed with the winner meeting number 1 seed Kentucky. The best news for UAB was that Birmingham was hosting the sub-regionals and UAB had been placed on their home court. The field in Birmingham was UAB, BYU, Kentucky, Oregon State, West Virginia, and Maryland. Tickets were $26 and $20 for the entire tournament package. The NCAA had not realized what a cash cow they had. However, even with those prices and the possibility of UAB meeting Kentucky in the second round, attendance was a dismal 7,105. Unfortunately for UAB, only McKinley Singleton showed up to play. The Blazers faced BYU and trailed by 8 at halftime. BYU shot 56% in the first half and UAB 38%. BYU increased their lead in the second half and won 84-68. Singleton tied the record at the time for most points in a single game with 34. UAB completed the season with a record of 23-11. On to 1985. The 1984-1985 Blazers got off to a red-hot start in an ice-cold location, winning the Great Alaska Shootout over Tennessee, Illinois, and Kansas. The Blazers were 11-4 going into conference play and finished the regular season 23-7. The Blazers were upset in the Sunbelt tournament by Old Dominion, a team they had split the regular season against. UAB still received an at-large bid to the 1985 NCAA tournament. They were the 7th seed and were sent to Houston, Texas. Coach Bartow was unhappy with the venue. Birmingham was hosting the regional finals, and he had hoped that the Blazers would be back in Birmingham. However, for the first time, the NCAA had decided that a team could not return to a regional final it was hosting. So UAB would not have the home court advantage that it had in 1982. The opponent was the 10th seed Michigan State, coached by legendary Judd Heathcote, and led by featured NBA coaches Scott Giles and Sam Vincent. The Spartans destroyed UAB on the boards in the first half, out-rebounding them 19-6. The lead changed hands 10 times in the first half, and Michigan led by 3 at half. Whatever Bartow said about rebounding in the locker room worked. Jerome Mincy, who had only 1 rebound in the first half, had 8 in the second. Archie Johnson came off the bench to grab 10 rebounds and 7 in the second half. There were 7 lead changes in the first 8 minutes, but UAB went on a 16-8 run, and a Steve Mitchell basket gave UAB a 1-point lead. With 1:44 to play, UAB was up 66-60, but committed 3 straight turnovers, and Michigan State cut into the lead. With 10 seconds to go, the Spartans were down 3. Sam Vincent took a shot and missed, but Spartan center Ken Johnson rammed home the rebound. The referee whistle blew, and many felt that it was a foul on UAB, which would give MSU the chance to tie the game. The official, who had been a thorn in UAB's side for many years, actually called it in UAB's favor. He ruled that the basket had been offensive goaltending and waved it off. UAB scored another free throw, and Giles hit a meaningless basket at the buzzer, and UAB won 70-68. Mitchell and Mincy each had 18 for the Blazers. From one of the greatest wins ever to the game that Gene Bartow called the most heartbreaking loss. The Blazers had defeated Michigan State to advance in the NCAA tournament, but their next opponent was the 2nd seed Memphis State Tigers, who are ranked 4th in the country. The two teams had met in the previous season, which resulted in a 1-point loss for UAB in overtime. 9 of the 10 starters in the game were from the Memphis area. Steve Mitchell and Memphis point guard Andre Turner had played on the same middle school team and competed against each other in high school. UAB fell behind 12-4, but came back to lead at the half, 32-27. James Ponder, the lone starter not from the Memphis area, had 12 first-half points. Memphis never led in the second half. With 25 seconds left to go in the second half, UAB led 61-60. Andre Turner took a bad shot from Memphis. UAB rebounded and passed the ball down the court. The ball was deflected, and Turner stole the ball. He found Memphis center Keith Lee under the basket. Lee went up, missed, but was fouled. He hit 1 of 2 free throws to tie the game, and it went to overtime. There were 4 lead changes in overtime. 62 seconds into overtime, UAB got a break when Keith Lee fouled out and opened up the middle. With 43 seconds left, UAB missed 4 straight shots, but was able to rebound, and Jack Gordon finally rammed the ball home. UAB was up 66-65. Andre Turner brought the ball down with 6 seconds left. He made a 15-foot jump shot over Mitchell, his former teammate, rival, and friend. Memphis led 67-66. UAB had one last chance. With 5 seconds to go, Ponder streaked across the court and let the ball fly from 25 feet. The ball was deflected, and Coach Bartow felt he was fouled. Memphis won 67-66 in overtime. Bartow chased the referees into the tunnel, protesting the no call. Ponder agreed that the Tiger had hit his hand on the shot. UAB had lost a heartbreaker, a game that Coach Bartow wanted more than any other. It hurt even more that 4 UAB starters had lost to their hometown team in such an important game. Memphis would advance to the Final Four that year. We don't have to go very far for the next one. In 1986, UAB was led by a legendary group of upperclassmen, including seniors Steve Mitchell and Jerome Mincy. The Blazers started off the season 12-3, with their only losses coming against Duke and UNLV. A weird end to the season saw UAB start 8-2 in conference play and end the season losing 4 of their last 6. This skid included playing 2 out-of-conference games against South Carolina and Michigan. In the conference tournament, UAB got past South Alabama, avenged 2 regular season losses to Western Kentucky by sending the Hilltoppers home in a beatdown, but the championship was spoiled by Jacksonville, who had beat UAB by 1. UAB still earned a spot in the NCAA tournament as an at-large 6th seed. UAB traveled to Ogden, Utah to play in the 1986 NCAA tournament, their 6th straight. Their first round opponent was Missouri, who was the 11th seed with a 21-13 record. UAB jumped out to a 16-6 lead as Steve Mitchell hit 3 of his first 4 shots. Missouri switched to a man-to-man and tied the game at 18 as UAB went cold. Frustration surfaced among the Blazers as Steve Mitchell and Jerome Mincy could be seen yelling at each other. When asked about it after the game, Mincy said, "We'll be yelling at each other until we're 50 or 60 years old." The Tigers took the lead and led by 3 at half. Neither team could lead by more than 4 points in the second half. UAB took a 2-point lead with 1:42 to go. Missouri had 2 chances to tie the game, but a key block by Archie Johnson preserved the win. UAB won 66-64 to advance to the next round. Steve Mitchell led UAB with 21 points. And in the round of 32, who was waiting for them? None other than 8th-ranked North Carolina. The Tar Heels had been ranked number 1 for most of the season, but had lost games late in the season and was now the 3 seed. North Carolina was led by Brad Dougherty, Jeff Lebo, and Kenny Smith. UAB never got into this game. Through the first 11 minutes, they shot 5 of 21. Steve Mitchell would end his career with probably his worst game as a Blazer. He was 1 of 10 in the first half and 3 for 21 for the game. He shot 1 of 8 from the free throw line. North Carolina jumped out to a 20-4 lead and never looked back. Bartow saw enough and went to the bench, who almost made a game of it and cut the lead to 7 by halftime. UAB did not get back in the second half, and shooting poorly remained the game plan. UAB lost 77-59. Steve Mitchell and Jerome Mincy, two of UAB's most celebrated players, had done a lot of great things at UAB, winning 92 games, a Great Alaska Shootout, and a couple of Sun Belt tournaments. But their senior season, one of the most anticipated seasons ever, had failed to meet the high expectations. On to 1987. The 1986-1987 season had its fair share of ups and downs. UAB started 7-3, then 3-2 to open conference play. Then 3 of their next 6 games were non-conference games, with 1 being a win over Bradley and the other 2 being losses to Temple and West Virginia. UAB ended the season 18-10, but went on a run hosting the Sun Belt tournament at the BJCC. UAB beat South Alabama, escaped in a close win over Jacksonville, and beat Western Kentucky to advance to the NCAA tournament. UAB received the 11th seed in the NCAA tournament. The Blazers got the good news that they would be playing their first and second rounds on their home court at the BJCC. Their first round opponent was Providence, coached by young Rick Pitino and led by an exciting point guard named Billy Donovan. UAB fans were excited about the draw, win 2 games in the brackets, and set them up for a possible Sweet 16 matchup against Alabama. The road seemed easier when Austin Peay upset 3-seed Illinois. The week before the tournament started, the festivities took a somber tone when Pitino's 6-month-old son died of an ailment he had fought since birth. Pitino decided to coach anyway, but stayed away from the press and out of the limelight. The three-point shot was only a year old, and teams were still learning how to utilize it. Providence averaged 20 points a game from three-point range, and Pitino employed a pressing defense that gave guards fits. Pre-game quotes by UAB players praised Pitino's style and called him a coach ahead of his time. Tracy Foster said, quote, "We take a three-point shot if it's given to us. Providence works for the three-pointer, shooting off picks at the three-point line. Providence was one of the first teams to ever utilize the three-pointer as part of their defense." The Blazers were favored by 1.5, but Vegas could not have been more wrong. UAB had no answer for Billy Donovan. Foster and James Ponder got in foul trouble immediately, and their subs could not keep up with him. Donovan was 12 of 17 from the field and hit 6 of 9 from three-point range. He scored 35 points and 12 assists as Providence won easily, 90-68. After the game, the almost usual rumors of Coach Bartow surfaced. This time, San Diego State was the rumored destination. These rumors had some fire because Bartow was good friends with the San Diego State athletic director. Bartow had met with the previous year with USC about the head coaching job, and in the past years, Memphis, Kentucky, Miami, Arizona State had all shown interest. It was a critical time for UAB. If Bartow left, football would have been off the table. He would be leaving behind the best recruiting class, Larry Rimbert, Alan Ogg, and Barry Bearden, and he would be leaving a new on-campus arena in the early stages of construction. A few days later, Bartow admitted that he had been contacted but was not a candidate. UAB boosters began putting together a $1 million retirement package. There were no serious rumors from then until he retired 9 years later. 3 years later, the Blazers made it back to the NCAA tournament. The 1989-1990 team had a great list of all-timers on their squad. Younger guys like Stanley Jackson, Elbert Rogers, and George Wilkerson were making a name for themselves, while the upperclassmen featured names like Barry Bearden, Andy Kennedy, Jack Kramer, Larry Rimbert, William Devon, and Alan Ogg. An 8-3 start with impressive wins over Auburn, Oregon, Penn State, and San Diego State springboarded UAB into conference play, which led UAB to winning the Sun Belt regular season title by 3 games. However, UAB had been upset in the second round of the Sun Belt tournament by Charlotte on UAB's home floor. They still received an at-large bid to the 1990 NCAA tournament. UAB was the 10th seed and matched up against the 7th-seed UCLA. The tournament was at the Omni in Atlanta, Georgia. Gene Bartow's first game in the Omni was as a coach of UCLA. His last game in the Omni was coaching against his old team, UCLA. There was a lot of hype leading into this game since it was Gene Bartow versus his old team. UAB stormed out to an 11-0 lead, but went cold. UAB had been one of the top three-point shooting teams in the nation that season, but over the last 3 games, they had really struggled. Their slump allowed UCLA to come back, and the Bruins led 30-27 at half. The Blazers could not mount a comeback due to poor shooting from the guards. Barry Bearden, Andy Kennedy, and Jack Kramer combined for 9 of 35 from the field. UCLA defeated its former coach 68-56. And in 1994, it was a special year because not only did the men make it, but the women's team made it for their first NCAA tournament appearance. This is the only time that both the men's and women's team made it in the same season. For the men, led by 6 seniors Carter Long, Robert Shannon, George Wilkerson, Frank Haywood, Reginald Allen, and Clarence Thrash, UAB seemed poised to make a return to the big dance for the first time in a few seasons. UAB had started the season off 10-1 before going into conference play, now in the Great Midwest Conference. The Blazers started conference play with a bang, defeating number 17 Cincinnati, and by the end of the regular season, they were 22-6. Unfortunately, that's where the good times ended. UAB lost to Memphis in the Great Midwest Conference tournament in their first game. UAB's strong record did earn an at-large as a 7th seed in the 1994 tournament. The location was Uniondale, New York, and their first-round opponent was George Washington, who had advanced to the Sweet 16 the previous year. GW was led by 7'1" Yinka Dare, who averaged 15.3 points per game and 14.7 rebounds per game. The Blazers out-rebounded by 12 and had only 8 turnovers, but shot 28% from the field, its lowest for the year. Robert Shannon tied the game with 4:55 left to go, but did not have a field goal the rest of the game. George Washington upset UAB 51-46. Robert Shannon led UAB with 16 points and 10 rebounds in his last game as a Blazer. And for the women's team, led by former greats Sharona Mifflin, Mary Morning, Yvette Dabney, Kenikia Curry, and Felicia Buckner, who all finished in the 1,000-point club at UAB, the Blazers were a strong threat in the Great Midwest Conference. The Blazers didn't get off to a hot start at 2-3, but went on a tear in conference play, going 14-0 and winning the regular season title. The Blazers headed to Cincinnati, Ohio, the site of the Great Midwest Conference Tournament. In their first game, the Blazers defeated the hometown Cincinnati Bearcats. In the conference championship, the Blazers defeated a pesky Memphis team that had played them close in the 2 regular season matchups by a score of 66-57. The Blazers headed to the big dance for the first time with a record of 23-5. Unfortunately, the streak came to an end when the Blazers headed to Washington, D.C. to play George Washington on their home floor, but UAB fell 74-66. In 1999, for the men's team, the Blazers were now in Conference USA. A 9-4 start to the season slightly derailed in the tough Conference USA play as the Blazers ended their regular season losing 3 of their last 5 games. The 19-10 Blazers hosted the Conference USA tournament at the BJCC and got past DePaul before falling to Louisville. The record still earned UAB an at-large spot in the NCAA tournament despite many TV personalities believing UAB shouldn't have gotten in. NCAA selection chair C.M. Newton was blasted by Dick Vitale on ESPN for putting UAB in over California or Toledo. Newton explained that UAB had played their way in with a great win over DePaul in the Conference USA tournament. Even some UAB fans felt that Gene Bartow had pulled some strings for his son Murray. UAB's RPI was 61. Gene Bartow had his controversy before the game. Paul Feinbaum radio show producer Bob Lockamy had filed a police report against Gene Bartow, claiming that Bartow had grabbed his arm in a confrontation at the Conference USA tournament. Bartow had confronted him over critical comments made by Feinbaum on his show. Lockamy stated that he did not plan to pursue a charge when asked. If performance in a game answers the questions as to whether you belong in the tournament, then UAB's answer was maybe. The Blazers were a 12 seed playing 5 seed Iowa, who was bidding farewell to their 13-year coach Tom Davis. Iowa came out shooting lights out. They made 10 threes in the first half by 7 different Hawkeye players. Red Williams kept UAB in the game, shooting 6 of 7 in the first half. The Iowa lead never got too big, but UAB could never catch them. In the second half, Dwayne Brown scored 7 straight to cut the Iowa lead to 3 points, but Iowa pushed it back to a 9-point lead. Fred Williams and Damon Cobb hit threes to cut it to a 1-point game, but Iowa pushed it again to a 10-point lead with 3:43 left to go. Iowa won 77-64. UAB finished the season 20-12 in Murray Bartow's only NCAA tournament appearance as the head coach for the Blazers. On to 2000, the 1999-2000 women's team for UAB had a different path to the big dance than the predecessors in 1994. The Blazers had an above-average regular season, going 8-3 in non-conference play, but then 8-8 in Conference USA play. The Blazers were staring at a 16-11 record going into the conference tournament in Louisville as the 8th seed. After double-digit wins over St. Louis, Marquette, and Southern Miss, the Blazers faced defending conference champion Tulane in the title game. The Blazers came up just short, falling 73-70, putting their postseason play in question. UAB earned an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed, and their first game was in Eugene, Oregon, against the 6 seed Oregon Ducks. But the Blazers, who were led by all-time greats like Deanna Jackson, Natasha Thomas, Felicia Jackson, Mia Thrash, and Michelle Smith, weren't intimidated and headed into the Pacific Northwest with upsets on their mind. Deanna Jackson was sensational in the first half against Oregon, hitting 10 of her 14 shots from all over the floor. Hooks, jumpers, a three-pointer, and backdoor layups on passes from Blazer guards, including her sister, Lisa Jackson. On her final basket of the first half, she got the ball in the high post near the corner, turned, and hit a 17-footer with 0.6 of a second left to give UAB a 39-38 halftime lead. In the second half, Oregon cranked up the pressure on Deanna Jackson, forcing her to not get a shot off until hitting a layup with 6:19 to go to give the Blazers a 61-58 lead. The game came down to the final seconds when a late putback layup by Deanna tied the game with 5.7 seconds left and sent it to overtime. In the overtime, Holly Holland's 2 free throws with 33 seconds left to go gave UAB a 78-76 lead, and Oregon responded with a three-pointer from Jamie Craighead to put the Ducks ahead 79-78 with 16.7 seconds left to go. The Ducks weren't prepared defensively and missed Shakita Rhodes under the basket, who put a shot back up and in with 3 seconds left to give UAB the 80-79 upset win. Quote, "I had trouble finding words to say after the game," said Oregon coach Jody Runge, who had lobbied hard to host the first 2 rounds after the Ducks opened the tournament on the road the past 5 seasons. Deanna Jackson had 27 of her career-high 32 points in the first half for the Blazers, but teammates came up with the heroics to set up the second-round matchup with 3-seeded Mississippi State. Mississippi State did a lot of homework on Deanna Jackson, but the Lady Bulldogs weren't prepared for the all-around game of Holly Holland. Jackson caught Mississippi State's eye by scoring the career-high 32 in the win over Oregon, and she started slowly, scoring just 8 in the first half. Mississippi State did a good job of denying her the ball most of the time, but that only freed up Holland, who hit 4 of 7 from three-point range. Holland had 12 points in the first half as UAB took a 39-28 lead. Latoya Thomas from Mississippi State was the nation's top scoring freshman in the regular season at nearly 21 points per game, but foul trouble plagued not only her, but the other Bulldogs in the second half. Along with taking advantage of Mississippi State's fouls, UAB had also played well on defense, forcing the Bulldogs to take jumpers and uncomfortable shots to get them out of their rhythm. A 3 by Holland finished an 11-0 run to put the Blazers up 60-41 with 8:05 to go. The Bulldogs rallied, getting the score to 70-65 on a layup with a minute left to go, but the Blazers hit their free throws and held on to win 78-72. Holland scored 21 points, and Deanna Jackson had 20 points and 11 rebounds. Quote, "She has a lot of confidence, and she wants the ball at the end," UAB coach Jeannie Milling said of Holland, who tied her season high. UAB was the lowest seed to advance to the Sweet 16 in 4 years, and they were the furthest team to advance in Conference USA's young history. The win set up a matchup with Rutgers the following week. Sadly, even though battling back from an early deficit, the Blazers couldn't overcome the Scarlet Knights. UAB fell 60-45, and Rutgers went on to the Final Four. A great run for a team that was in their second NCAA tournament ever. On to 2004, a run that we all know very well from the men's team. UAB, now under the direction of coach Mike Anderson, started the season 7-4 in non-conference play before heading into another gauntlet of tough Conference USA basketball play. UAB went 12-3 in conference play and headed to Cincinnati, Ohio for the Conference USA tournament. After narrowly escaping against Charlotte, UAB lost a nail-biter to DePaul 75-74. UAB did get into the NCAA tournament as an at-large team. UAB was the 9th seed in the 2004 NCAA tournament and assigned to games in Columbus, Ohio. Their first-round opponent was Washington, the 8th seed. Demario Edens was remarkable in this game. He scored 26 points, and in the final minutes, he took a charge that negated a basket, hit 2 free throws with 16 seconds left, and blocked a shot. UAB had built an 11-point lead with 12:03 to go. Washington had cut the lead to 1, 90-89 with 1:53 to go. With 38.4 seconds left and the Huskies down 3, Washington's Nate Robinson drove and scored, but Edens took a charge, which wiped off the basket. After the game, even Robinson admitted the charge changed the game. Washington cut the lead to 1 with 18 seconds left, but Edens' 2 free throws and the blocked shot came up crucial. The Blazers won in a thriller, 102-100. They would advance to play number 1 seed Kentucky in a game that was, quote, delicious. Kentucky was not only a number 1 seed, but the number 1 overall seed. The crowd of predominantly Kentucky blue was stunned in the first half as UAB, with the fastest 40 minutes brand of basketball, put it to the Wildcats. The halftime score was 42-33 UAB, which was Kentucky's biggest halftime deficit that year. In the second half, fate continued to shine on UAB when Donnell and Ronell Taylor, collectively known as the Taylor Twins, contributed to what makes March special with the play of the year, the play the editors of One Shining Moments dream about. Ronell stole an Antoine Barber pass to stop a 2-on-1 Kentucky break. After stealing it, he then turned, threw the ball two-handed over his head 50 feet to his brother at the other end of the court for an amazing dunk. From that point, everyone not wearing Kentucky blue was a Blazer fan. However, Kentucky made their expected comeback, and it appeared the number 1 seed would win the game, building the lead to 69-63. In the final 2 minutes, Kentucky was up by 4. Momentum changed when Kentucky rebounded to Mario Eden's miss. Squeaky Johnson stole the ball and passed it to Edens for a layup. Kentucky turned the ball over again, one of 5 turnovers in the final 5 minutes for the Wildcats. Mo Finley hit a three-pointer to put UAB up 72-71. Over the next minute and a half, the lead changed hands 3 times. With 29 seconds left to go, Kentucky led 75-74. After a UAB timeout, the Blazers brought the ball down and worked the ball between Squeaky and Mo. Mo Finley got the final shot. Kentucky player Chuck Hayes lunged out. Finley gave him a quick head fake, and Hayes went flying past. Finley then launched an 18-footer that was nothing but net, giving UAB the lead 76-75. Kentucky had one last shot. Gerald Finch had a really good look because of the missed assignment by Squeaky Johnson. He took a 20-foot shot that bounced off the rim. Chuck Hayes for Kentucky tipped the ball towards the basket as the horn sounded. The tip missed, and once again, UAB shocked the world. The win signified a temporary return to national prominence. UAB was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, although sharing begrudgingly with Alabama. A whole new generation had discovered the excitement of Blazer basketball. UAB had advanced to the Sweet 16. Their next opponent was Kansas, the 4 seed. The game was played in the very pro-Kansas-filled Edward Jones Dome in St. Louis, Missouri. Bill Self, in his first year at Kansas, had a couple of days to prepare his more talented players for UAB's fastest 40 pressure defense. Reportedly, they had practiced bringing the ball down against a team of 7 or 8 players to simulate UAB's trapping defense. The Jayhawks clinically dismantled the pressure defense, ruled the paint, and easily won 100-74. Kansas started the game with a 22-8 lead and never looked back, leading by as much as 31 points. UAB managed to score only 2 points on fast breaks and was forced into a half-court game, which was a weak area for the Blazers. Mike Anderson must have seen enough and got himself a second technical foul and was ejected by walking into the court during play to call a timeout. Kansas forward Wayne Simeon had his way inside, scoring 30 points in 28 minutes. Mo Finley had led UAB with 13 points, but was only 4 of 19 from the field. The NCAA tournament was a great run for the Blazers, despite how badly it ended. 1 year later, in 2005, the Blazers had lost talented players from the season before, like Mo Finley, Gabe Kennedy, and Sidney Ball, to name a few, but still returned a very deep roster in the 04-05 season, led by a ton of veteran players. UAB started off 10-3, and a good start in conference play quickly turned bleak with a 4-game losing streak. The Blazers managed to win their final 4 games of the regular season and go into the conference tournament in Memphis with a 20-9 record. Senior DeMario Edens' heroic game-winning 3 in the final seconds lifted UAB to a 59-56 win over DePaul, but eventual conference champion Louisville sent UAB home 74-67. Thankfully, the Cards took care of Memphis in the conference title game, who more than likely would have been a bid stealer. UAB received an at-large bid to the 2005 NCAA tournament and was an 11th seed. Their first-round matchup was the 6th seed LSU Tigers, led by big man Glenn Big Baby Davis. The Tigers were no matchup for UAB's swarming defense. Donnell Taylor described the carnage best, quote, "They haven't faced a pressure like ours. We got in their grill and they were bouncing the ball off their feet." UAB led by 12 at halftime and by 20 midway through the second half. By the end of the game, LSU was exhausted and UAB won 82-68. Marvin McDonald had 21 points, hitting 5 three-pointers. After beating LSU, the Blazers faced 3-seed Arizona. The Wildcats remained focused and unbothered by UAB's relentless pressure. UAB shot 6 of 30 from 3 and just 32% total on the game compared to Arizona, who shot over 50%. UAB couldn't keep up, and the run ended there with a loss 85-63. The very next year, UAB made it back. In 2006, UAB used an 8-2 stretch to end the non-conference schedule. The conference had gone through a major change with traditional basketball powers fleeing for the Big East. That left Memphis as the new power. The Blazers ended the regular season on a 6-game winning streak, including a home win over number 3 Memphis, 80-74. UAB got past SMU and barely over UTEP before facing Memphis in the title game on their home floor at the FedEx Forum in Memphis. The Tigers were too much for UAB as the Blazers fell 57-46. UAB did earn an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament as the 9th seed against a familiar foe, 8th-seeded Kentucky. This was the 3rd time they had faced Kentucky in the NCAA tournament and the 2nd time in 3 years. Kentucky had struggled under Tubby Smith and was 21-12. Kentucky fans were unhappy with such a low seed. They were also looking for payback for the loss UAB gave them in 2004 when Kentucky was the 1 seed. Having faced it once, Kentucky was ready for the fastest 40 minutes of basketball. They had only 8 turnovers in the game, which took away UAB's most effective weapon. Tubby Smith only let Rajon Rondo bring up the ball with few passes. UAB was unable to trap him and force turnovers. UK forced the game into a half-court style, which was UAB's kryptonite. Although it was close, Kentucky won 69-64. It was the last game for several Blazers, including Squeaky Johnson and Marvick McDonald. It was also the last game for Mike Anderson, who accepted a job at the University of Missouri. It was the end of an era for UAB, one of the most exciting in its history. The Blazers had to wait until 2011 for their next NCAA tournament. UAB got off to a good start at 10-3 with a notable win over Arkansas, and 2 of those losses coming by a combined 5 points. The start of conference play also got off to a great start with a crazy triple overtime win over UTEP. A 12-4 conference play record was good enough to win the Conference USA regular season title. However, the Blazers were upset in the quarterfinals of the Conference USA tournament in El Paso by East Carolina, a team they had beaten by 18 at home 5 days earlier. In a controversial decision, at least among the TV experts, UAB still received an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Jay Billis and Dick Vitale seemed especially put out by UAB's inclusion. The 2011 NCAA tournament was the first year the field went to 68, and UAB was part of the first 4 games to be played in Dayton, Ohio. UAB and their opponent, Clemson, were 12 seeds. Clemson won on a 21-2 run in the first half and never let the lead slip away. UAB was blown out and never got closer than 8 points in the second half. Well, it got even worse when UAB, already down 61-42, lost Aaron Johnson to a broken leg in the last game of his career. Clemson won 70-52. Jamar Sanders had 19 points for UAB and Dexter Fields had 12. And on to 2015, this UAB season was unlike any other in terms of crazy turnarounds. The Blazers started the season 4-9 in non-conference play. Not included in that record was a loss to UNC Pembroke in an exhibition game to start the season. Close to half of the non-conference games included top 25 opponents, including the Battle for Atlantis tournament in the Bahamas. This tough play likely helped the Blazers in conference play because the Blazers went 12-7. UAB hosted the Conference USA tournament at the BJCC in Birmingham and got a dramatic first win over Western Kentucky that included late-game heroics by Nick Norton and Robert Brown. The Blazers then faced 1-seed Louisiana Tech and almost let a big lead slip away, but the game went to overtime and UAB came away with a 10-point win. UAB played Middle Tennessee in the conference title game, and this was never really close. UAB won 73-60 and earned an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. UAB was the 14th seed, playing 3-seed Iowa State. It was UAB's worst seed ever. The Blazers were the youngest team in the tournament and the first game on the schedule. Iowa State was ranked 9th in the country and had come into the game having won 5 straight and had rallied from double digits down in each of the games. UAB had started slow and was down 12-2 at the start. They regrouped and came back and led by 3 at halftime. The second half was back and forth with several lead changes. With UAB down 4 in the final minutes, a William Lee layup cut the lead to 55-53, and a Robert Brown three-pointer put UAB up 56-55 with 52 seconds left to go. Iowa State pushed ahead with 41 seconds left to go, 57-56 on a Monty Morris jumper, but then William Lee hit a jumper of his own with 24 seconds to go to put UAB back up by 1. Iowa State tried to answer but had a shot blocked by Tosin Mahinti, and Lee got the rebound. He was fouled and hit 2 free throws with 12.1 seconds to go to give UAB the 3-point lead. The Cyclones had a great chance at a game-tying three-pointer, but missed and got a meaningless tip-in with barely any time left. UAB threw it in, tapped the ball, and had pulled off the first upset of the 2015 NCAA tournament. The final score was 60-59. Robert Brown led UAB with 21 points. William Lee had 14 points and 12 rebounds. After the upset victory over Iowa State, the 14-seeded Blazers had to face another double-digit seed. Their opponent was UCLA, the 11th seed, who had advanced by beating the 6th-seed SMU. A double-digit seed would be in the Sweet 16, and UAB hoped to be it. UCLA dominated the ball inside and outscored UAB 52-22 in the paint. They dominated the boards 41-26. All UAB seemed to be successful at was hitting threes, hitting a season-high 12 trays. UCLA shot over 60% in the first half and led by 9 at the break. In the second half, they extended their lead, and every time UAB made a run, cutting it to 6 at one point, UCLA answered with their run of their own. The Bruins won 92-75. UAB was led by Robert Brown's 25 points. With a team of mostly freshmen and sophomores, the Blazers hoped that a new beginning was on the horizon. And obviously, we are living in the presence of another NCAA tournament trip. Congrats to our Blazers for defeating Louisiana Tech to win the Conference USA title game this year. At the time of this recording, the UAB-Houston game has not tipped off just yet, but by the time you hear this, hopefully we will have exciting stories to tell for a future episode. So congratulations once again to Coach Kennedy and his staff, the players, and to all those involved in a great season and adding more to the banners hanging in Bartow. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Dragon's Den. Be on the lookout for my guest announcement for my next episode coming soon. In the meantime, go follow my social pages at Dragon's Den EFEL on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Good night, and go Blazers.